So when I used to go back to school in September, there was one thing that used to drive me mad, and that was getting a new school timetable. I would sit in my form room and wait for this new timetable to come, and you'd get it and you'd be scouring through it, because this timetable meant something. This timetable was what was going to dictate my life for the next year. It would determine which lesson I went to after which one, which corridors I would walk down, which nights I was going to do certain homework. And I always used to remember, like, for the first few weeks of school, I just couldn't remember it. And I would be clinging to this timetable. I'd come out of one lesson and then have to look at my timetable. And after maybe 6 weeks, I'd have it memorised and nailed, and that would be it for the year. But those first few weeks, I was so attentive to what was on this timetable. And I guess I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes about what would it be if God had his own timetable for you in your school. You see, I believe that God put you in your school for a reason, for such a time as this, that you're intentionally in the year group that you're in the class that you're in. And so that must mean that God has an intention for your time in your school. I just want to read a verse to you from John 5:19, where Jesus says this: "I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does." Jesus says this part where he says, do you know what? God is always doing something around me, and my job is to see what God's doing and join in with that. What if God had a timetable for you in your school? A timetable that almost lays right on top of the timetable that you get for your lessons. How aware of that are you? What would it look like for you to be in your school and be really aware of what God's doing as you walk into a classroom going, okay, well, what's God's intention for me in this space? If you're called to your school for such a time as this, then God has stuff for you to be doing in your school every day. Do you know you can make a huge difference in your school through starting CUs, through standing up for what you believe in your lessons, sure. You know, someone once said that the school years are the best years of your life. I don't actually believe that's true, but what I do believe is that you will never have as much influence over people's lives as you do now. You will know hundreds of people that don't know Jesus in a way that you never will in the rest of your life. And I believe that God has an intention for you in that space, a timetable. So what would it look like? Rather than blindly walking down corridors and into classrooms and sitting and eating your lunch, what would it look like to walk down those classrooms and say, what has God got for me in this space? As you walk down a corridor, what's God doing here that I could join in with? As you step into a classroom, what is it that God is doing in this classroom that he wants me to join in with right now? So I want to ask you, what's God's timetable that he wants to lay over the top of yours? In this next week, can you walk into a space and say, God, show me what you're doing in this school and let me join in?